Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos.
After the main character dies inside of his previous life, he wakes up as Rimuru and says is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? What will Rimuru do?
Danmachi, what if I am reborn as Rimura? Chapter 1, Silent Pool, Silver Core. It took a few seconds after consciousness returned for my body to process sensation. I felt no limbs, no breath, no heartbeat. My core floated, perfectly still, in a faintly luminous pool of mana-dense water. The liquid didn't lap or ripple. It held me like a sealed cradle, still and soundless. Not just mana, this wasn't ambient flow. This magic was structured, coded with an old logic. I felt it pulse faintly like a system with rules, and I wasn't part of it. This wasn't the world I came from. It was Tempest, not the Jura forest, not even Earth. But I was still alive. My skills were intact. I felt magic sense, running in passive formation, gently scanning the space around me with layered perception, temperature, movement, energy type, mineral density. No light sources, but my range gave me a perfect model of the cavern. 5 meters wide, sealed on all sides. Stone was uniform, deliberate, not natural cave, but artificial chamber, ritual-grade construction. I'd been placed here, or created here. I drew my mass together and surfaced. My core hovered near the liquid surface, allowing my outer membrane to rise first. The water clung unnaturally to me, not friction, permission, like the pool itself had accepted me. Above me, darkness. Around me, silence. I moved toward the far wall, soundless. My slime body glided over the surface like a ghost, and when I reached the edge, I reshaped. Universal shapeshift, active. I took on my usual humanoid form. Blue-silver hair, simple tunic and pants formed from magicule threads, bare feet. No armor, no weapons. The chamber felt tighter at this size, but not restrictive. I stretched one hand forward and released a low-grade flare circle. The fire spell floated above my palm, casting orange light across the curved stone wall. Carved runes lined the surface. They weren't from my world. Not the ancient demon language, not dwarven magic script, not anything I'd seen on Earth either. But I understood it. I wasn't sure how, but my body, this new context, this world, it translated automatically. The runes marked depth levels. Dungeon layer 10. I exhaled slowly. So this is Arario. Danmachi. The word landed in my chest like a note remembered from a dream. I didn't panic. I didn't laugh. I didn't monologue about fate. I just accepted it. I knew this world. Not through reincarnation-induced memory, but because in my past life, the first one, I'd watched it unfold, floor by floor, god by god. Falna, familiar, the city of Arario, the monsters, the dungeon itself. This was Gekkai, a world shaped by divinity and ruled by the raw math of leveling systems. And I wasn't from here. But I was here now, Rimuru Tempest, as I was at my strongest, before Veldanava's system, before the Otherworlders, before evolution locked me into responsibilities I couldn't walk away from. I was free. Still me, still Rimuru, with all my skills, memories, and processing capacity intact, and in a world where none of the gods knew my name. Great Sage, are you active? Confirmed. Operational status. Full capacity. Status. Name, Rimuru Tempest. Race, Ultimate Slime. Blessing, none. Title, none. Skills, Great Sage, Predator, Gluttony, Multilayer Barrier, Universal Shapeshift, Thought Acceleration, Spatial Storage, etc. Magic, Black Flame, Water Blade, Spatial Motion, etc. Resistances, complete. Equipment, none. No Falna, no bond to a god. That meant no level, no guild record. I wasn't part of the system. But I didn't need to be. I opened a spatial thread and pulled out a simple mask, one Shizu once wore, now reshaped through my own skill for a less memorable design. Just a smooth white cover with eyeholes. Nothing divine, nothing cursed. Just enough to keep faces from sticking. I put it on and stepped toward the far end of the chamber. The runes shifted slightly, and a seal disengaged. The door opened. I entered the dungeon. Floor 10 was dimly lit. The air carried a faint metallic edge, blood, steel, sulfur from old spells. The stonework matched the official dungeon floor mapping, wide tunnels with enough space for full sword arcs and party maneuvers. I didn't sense adventurers nearby, but monsters were active. 2 Barghists, 1 War Shadow, close. I narrowed my presence. Magic sense, retracted to 30 meters, just enough for tactical awareness. I didn't want to be found. Not yet. I killed the first Barghist with a silent black lightning pulse, targeted through its core, just enough force to disable without overkill. It dissolved into black ash. The second one I trapped with sticky steel thread, then fed it into Predator, slowly to test this world's magical structure. Dungeon monsters here weren't the same as magical beasts from Tempest's forest. Their construction was simpler. No soul layer, no spirit energy, just raw mana shaped into living form, controlled by the dungeon itself. Which meant, if I consumed them, the dungeon wouldn't remember them as individuals. There was no karmic trace, no spiritual memory, just disappearance. That was good. I absorbed the data and moved toward the upward passage. I could reach floor 1 by nightfall if I didn't stop. But I didn't go directly up. I shadowed a group of adventurers first. 3 of them, human, new armor, moderate formation discipline. They fought lizardmen in a shallow arc, with the frontliner tanking while the rear guard supported with low-grade fire magic. Their aim was survival, not glory. I kept pace behind them, 30 meters back, sliding through side corridors and watching their timing. They were slow. Their leader was overcorrecting stance. The mage took too long to chant. Their potions weren't in quick-draw loops. They'd reach floor 6 alive, but tired. When they ran into trouble, I waited. A war shadow dropped from the ceiling. The leader blocked too late. His arm split from elbow to wrist. I stepped forward. A sticky thread. I silenced the creature mid-motion, pinned it to the wall, then released Water Blade, through its chest before it could scream. The adventurers froze. I walked forward slowly, hands at my sides, mask still on. Your leader needs healing. Use the potion on his left hip. The mage obeyed automatically. No questions. Smart. Once the wound was sealed, I turned without explaining and continued upward. I let magic sense track them until they left the floor. They wouldn't forget the help, but they wouldn't follow either. I reached floor 2 near dusk. Above me was floor 1 and the surface beyond it. The tower, the city, Babel. Arario. I let my humanoid form blur slightly, simplifying into something less distinct. A tamer's slime. Maybe an escaped summon. Unthreatening. I crouched near the exit arch and waited for a group to pass. 3 hours passed before a mid-tier familiar descended. I let them see me, limped forward, body half flickering. The captain noticed me first. Wait, is that a monster? One of them raised a sword. Hold, wait, it's not attacking. I stopped 5 meters from their formation and tilted my head. Not speaking. Not casting. Just passive. The one in the rear murmured, "Is it tamed?" The captain stepped forward cautiously. I've seen some training slime types, but not this color. I let a small glow pulse from my core, magic sense, just enough to suggest intelligence. They didn't attack. Let's bring it to the guild. At worst, they'll lock it. At best, someone's missing a pet. They opened a cage. I walked inside. That was the easiest way out. I didn't resist as they tagged me, marked the crate, and started the long climb up. Arario was above. The gods were above. And I was coming. Chapter 2. The Forgotten Familiar. The crate stopped moving, just past the guild's outer gates. I waited, eyes closed, magic sense active. The party that carried me through the dungeon, small-time adventurers from a barely known familiar, were speaking with someone at the guild check-in point. I didn't open my eyes. I didn't need to. The air inside Arario felt different, less wild, more filtered. Softer mana currents, sharper spell markers. Civilization, on paper. Sloppy by my standards. I listened carefully. The leader of the party, a short man with iron armor and a gentle voice, spoke low. We found this one on floor 2, didn't attack. No cause anywhere nearby. We thought maybe it was tamed, or trained. It even walked into the crate on its own. Doesn't have a crest, the guild receptionist answered. No familiar sigil, no brand, any identifying item on it. Nope. All right, leave it with us. I'll mark it for holding. If it stays docile for 72 hours, we'll scan it again. 72 hours. That wouldn't happen. I stood up before the guild handler even touched the latch. The cage door clicked open, and I stepped out onto the marble floor, form shifting fluidly into my standard humanoid appearance. The guild handler, some green-haired kid in light armor, took 2 full steps back, one hand going toward a hidden alarm crystal. He didn't pull it. Smart kid. I looked around. Reception lobby, evening hour, no adventurers inside, just clerks, stacks of paperwork and stale ink in the air, the usual. You can tell your superior I'm not a monster. I walked out because I wanted someone to notice. The guild handler hesitated. You speak. Yes. Are you tamed? No. He swallowed hard. Then what are you? A traveler. He didn't press, just nodded, then rushed toward the back office. I didn't move. No need to show nerves. I had the advantage. 2 minutes later, a door opened. And that's when I saw her. Dark purple hair, curled upward and set high. Loose crimson robes over simple sandals. A necklace with a cracked amethyst pendant. She wasn't tall, wasn't impressive. Her divinity wasn't overwhelming. But the way the air thinned when she stepped into the room said enough. A god. Not one I remembered from the upper tiers. Not one that had been important in canon. No Loki, no Freya, no Ganesha. She looked at me. I met her eyes. Neither of us spoke. Then she nodded slowly. You're not from the dungeon. No. You're not from Gekai. No. Her mouth curved slightly. Not a smile, just acknowledgement. You're not lying. Correct. She stepped forward slowly. The staff at the desk watched but didn't interrupt. The god's eyes were dark, not empty but tired. You have no Falna. I don't need one. You're powerful. Yes. She looked me over again, from hair to boots, then to my core, still faintly visible under the breastbone because I hadn't suppressed the glow. Will you come with me? Where? To my familiar. I considered it, not for long. What's your name? Calliope. That wasn't a lie. I didn't recognize her from canon, but the weight in her voice said she wasn't new. You're familiar. One member. That made the choice easier. I nodded, I'll come. No promises, no contracts, no bowing, just agreement. The handler looked like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. Good. We left the guild in silence. Arario's side streets at night were still alive, but quieter. Shopkeepers closing up, torchlight flickering over cobblestones. Drunks passed out near fountain edges. Passing adventurers gave us glances, but none spoke. They recognized her faintly. The way you recognize an old stone in a familiar square. Forgotten, but present. We reached her home within 10 minutes. It was a narrow house built between 2 larger inns. brick exterior, upper balcony boarded off. No sigils, no guards, no status. She pushed open the door. Inside, clean but stripped, one table, two chairs, a hearth with no fire, a kitchen without ingredients, upstairs one bedroom, probably hers, a second unused, no staff, no familiar crest on the wall. I stepped inside. She followed. The door closed behind her. You weren't surprised I could speak. I was. You aren't shocked I look like this? No. Why? Calliope sat down the table slowly. Because you're not the first thing this world has rejected. I didn't answer. She placed her fingers over the cracked gem on her necklace. I came to Gekkai for beauty, for poetry, for stories worth repeating in eternity. I wasn't born for war or numbers. And what did you find? She looked up. Power, raw, quiet power, flattening everything in its path. Level 6s treated like weapons. Level 3s dying like insects. Children fighting to climb a staircase to gods that stopped caring halfway up. A bitter god, not naive, just done. You were once strong, I said. Yes. And you're familiar. Broke, crushed between ambition and luck. Do you want revenge? No. That earned her a glance. She was telling the truth. You want relevance. I want to hear a story worth telling again. I folded my arms. So when you saw me, I saw the first unpredictable thing this world has offered in a century. Fair enough. I sat across from her. You want me in your familiar? No, she said, not unless you want to be. That surprised me, just slightly. I leaned back in the chair. So what happens now? I offer you a place to stay, and you offer me anything you feel like offering. No contract. No chains. I looked around the room again. Bare walls, dust, no enchantments, no alarms. I could leave right now. She wouldn't stop me. But I didn't. Because what she offered wasn't power, it was freedom. And in this world, under the weight of gods and status boards and adventurer politics that mattered more than gold, I pulled a low-tier potion from my spatial storage and placed it on the table. She blinked. Just in case I'm wrong about you, I said. Her fingers closed around it slowly, reverently, not because of greed, just memory. This is high purity. It's not from this world. No, it's not. She smiled, just a little. I don't need to know where you're from, or what you are, not yet. I appreciate that. She gestured upstairs. Pick a room or take the couch. I'll stay nearby. You're not staying. Tonight, no, I want to see the city. She didn't try to stop me, just nodded. If the door's locked when you return, knock twice, wait, then knock once. Got it. I left the house and stepped into the night air again. The temperature had dropped slightly, but not enough to bother me. My barrier adjusted automatically. Magic sense spread out again, layering movement, location, and hostility markers across a 5-block radius. No threats. I walked without rushing, through alleys, past taverns, past shops selling gear with laughable enchantments, past temples with no light. Arario was still a city of power. It just didn't realize it was bored. At the far edge of the merchant district, I paused. 2 members of Soma Familia were arguing outside a warehouse. One of them was shaking. The other held a broken bottle. I didn't interfere. 3 Loki Familia members passed me near the northern fountain. Ares wasn't with them. I didn't look up. They didn't notice me. I turned down a side street and past a dying lantern. And that's when I felt it. Pressure. Not direct, not divine, not aimed at me. Just observation. A window opened on the second floor of a quiet home. A woman looked out, silver hair, half-lidded eyes, perfect posture. Freya. She looked past me, not at me. And that was the most dangerous part, because it meant I was still beneath notice. For now, I walked away. I returned to Calliope's home just before sunrise. The door was unlocked. She was still awake, sitting at the table, reading a blank book. I sat across from her again. I've decided. Her eyes lifted. I'll stay. Not as familiar. Not yet. She nodded, satisfied. And for the first time since I entered this world, I felt something quiet settle in my chest. Not peace. Just stability. Enough to begin. Chapter 3, Where Gods Gaze Sideways. Calliope didn't ask questions when I told her I wanted to meet the other gods. She simply set down her cup of cold tea, pulled a worn ledger from the shelf behind her, and started listing names. Her handwriting was clean, efficient, each character precise. No dramatic pauses, no vague warnings about what I might encounter. She had no illusions that I couldn't handle myself. That was good. I didn't need hand-holding. I needed names. I needed to see how this world's upper tiers operated, how the gods who'd carved out power within Arario chose to act when they weren't watching their children die in the dungeon. More importantly, I needed to see who didn't matter. That was where Calliope's usefulness was already showing. They meet irregularly, she said, flipping through the book. Never officially, but there's a pattern. It's not politics, it's boredom. Most of them have too much time and too little to do, so they gather. To compare failures, I asked. She gave a short breath, something between a sigh and a smirk. To gossip, to drink, to mock each other's mistakes. Power is only fun when someone weaker's watching. Are these major familiar? No, that's the point. No Freya, no Loki, no Hephaestos. Only the ones with too little influence to be invited to proper war councils. So the ones who watched everything, but were trusted with nothing. Perfect. Calliope handed me a folded note. A pass. Not magical, not sealed, but written in her divine script. It would get me past the outer door. They meet in the eastern quarter. Third floor of a wine shop called Syrinx. Use the back stairs. Say nothing when you enter. What do I wear? She blinked once. You care about presentation. I adjusted the long coat I'd formed out of magicules. Only the first impression. I left before she could reply. The walk through Arario was quiet. Morning sun was still low behind Babel's shadow, and most adventurers were either underground or unconscious. Shops hadn't opened yet. The road dust was undisturbed. Magic sense confirmed everything ahead of me. 6 people on the main floor of Syrinx, 2 more moving crates below, and 3 individuals on the 3rd floor, none moving. 1 god, 2 mortals. No hostilities, no traps. I took the side alley and climbed the exterior stairs. 3rd floor, back entrance, quiet knock. No one opened the door, but it unlatched after 2 seconds. I stepped inside. The room was filled with incense smoke, thin, dry, meant to hide the smell of the cheap alcohol in the air. A small bar stood near the corner, behind which sat a man with short blue hair and no shirt. Not divine, just a bored mortal. One eye was bloodshot. He poured drinks without speaking. A circle of gods sat around a low table. None of them looked surprised to see me. One waved me over, without bothering to ask who I was. "You're the slime," he said. The voice was sharp, nasal. The god wore a chain around his bare shoulders and an eye patch over one eye that didn't seem to be missing. He didn't wait for my response. "You're the one Calliope found, or who found her. She offered me shelter." "Same thing, sit." I did. They watched me. Not in fear, not with awe, just curiosity. Like I was a new piece in a board game they hadn't agreed on the rules for yet. Another god leaned forward. She was taller, older-looking, thin fingers, eyes the color of rusted copper. Your aura is clean, but it doesn't register. I don't carry a falna, I answered. Then you're not bound. No. You're not a beast either. No. The gods glanced at one another. I didn't move. I didn't shrink. I let them talk. The tall one took another sip of wine. You're Rimuru, correct? I am. She nodded. I'm Egina, that S. Varnes. The others won't bother introducing themselves. Most of them forget their own names unless someone shouts them during sex. The others didn't deny it. Egina set down her glass. This is a sanctuary for irrelevant gods. We're not watched, not useful. No one listens to us. That's why we're allowed to sit here. I understand, I said. No, I don't think you do. She leaned forward, placing one elbow on her knee. You're powerful, but you're unbound. That makes you a wild card, and that makes you a threat. You're not threatening me. I'm telling you how they'll see you. They, the ones who run this city, the ones who already know you exist. I stayed silent. She continued. You've already passed through the guild, already entered the dungeon, already interacted with two familiar. That's enough. The system has already flagged you, Rimuru. Your next move determines whether they categorize you as a curiosity or a provocation. That's not your concern. No, she said, but it might be Calliope S. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Varnes poured another drink and tossed it down his throat without ceremony. So, slime god, what are you here for? I wanted to see who still paid attention, even after the war games stopped, even after the guild stopped listening. And you're useful. That got a few laughs. Egina tilted her head. Useful to who? To me. Silence. Then she smiled. You're not like other monsters. No. You're not like most adventurers either. I've noticed. The door opened behind me. Another god entered, thin robe, sandals, messy hair. He looked around, saw me, and frowned. I thought we weren't bringing weapons to this one. Egina waved a hand. He's not here to fight. He doesn't smell divine. He's not. Then why? Because he listens. You should try it sometime. The new god didn't respond, just sat in the corner and poured his own wine. I let the discussion move on. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. For the next hour, they talked about everything but power. Trade routes, festivals, scandals, who was sleeping with who, which familiar had broken curfew rules, who got caught summoning spirits illegally in the Western Garden. Useless information. Maybe. But not to me. Because everything they said revealed something about the real structure of Arario, who was watching, who was moving, which gods cared about status, and which just wanted to keep their familiar alive long enough to matter. By the time I stood to leave, I had 24 names, 6 suspected alliances, and 3 points of tension that would likely result in conflict within the next season. None of them asked where I was going. None of them asked who I really was. That meant I'd passed. I stepped out of Syrinx and let the door close behind me. Great Sage, summarize. Target groups identified. Tarsa familiar, likely desperate, may accept irregulars. Mest familiar, in debt, watching Calliope. Flon familiar, politically neutral but efficient, possible ally. Risk assessment, low, observation continues. Mark anyone who tried to read me. 2 divine scans attempted, blocked, no alert raised. Good. That meant they weren't ready. That meant I still had time. I returned to Calliope's house after midday. She was asleep on the couch, one arm hanging off the side, a book open across her chest. The pages were blank. I let her rest. In the kitchen, I placed a satchel of herbs and reagents I'd collected from the dungeon's edge, rare ones, enough to brew 2 high-end potions and a basic resistance salve. Payment of a kind. I didn't owe her, but I respected what she'd given me. Space. And in this world, space was the most expensive currency. I sat at the table and began drafting notes. Names, symbols, power networks, gods who hid their intent under smiles, familiar who hoarded strength but stayed out of the dungeon, mortals with no levels but dangerous reputations. The city had been stable too long. That meant it was about to shake. And when it did, I wanted to be ready. Chapter 4. A Lesser God's Burden. The knock at the door came just after second bell, too late for a merchant, too early for a guild official. It was deliberate, hesitant but not fearful. 3 quick strikes, then silence. Calliope didn't move from her seat. She was at the kitchen table, head tilted against one hand, reading through a trade manifest from a decade ago. The paper was faded, but she still turned every page like it mattered. I opened the door. A man stood there, late 20s, white robe frayed at the sleeves, sandals barely holding together. His eyes flicked up when he saw me, not alarmed, just confused. "I'm here to see Calliope," he said. "She's here." He hesitated. "She's awake," I added. "Come in." He entered slowly, dusting his hands on the edge of his robe, like he was trying to make himself smaller. Calliope didn't look up until he spoke. "It's happening again," he said quietly. Her fingers stilled on the page, then she closed the book and set it aside. "Sit down, Epimetheus." That name meant nothing to most people in Arario now. A minor god, once known for hosting open readings and festivals in the lower squares. Not divine enough for alliances, not wealthy enough for protection. His familiar had dwindled in silence. No scandals, no deaths, just attrition. He sat at the edge of the table. "I wouldn't have come if there was anyone else." Calliope leaned forward. "Talk." Epimetheus swallowed. 2 days ago, 3 of my children were approached near the guild by men claiming to represent a potion supplier, Hadrams. They offered low prices, too low. My children accepted the deal. The next morning, their rooms were broken into. The rest of the potions were missing, along with our last 5 Kelter. "You can't prove who took them," Calliope said. "No, but yesterday, one of Hadram's men came to the house. He said we owed for the product, that we had to pay interest, or work it off." "That's Soma familiar," I said. He turned to me. "What?" "They're not acting under Soma's orders, but it's them. His lower members do this kind of thing, selling through third parties, then using theft and debt to control minor familiar." Epimetheus looked sick. "They can't do that openly, can they?" Calliope didn't answer. I did. "They can. As long as no one dies and the guild doesn't get complaints, they're untouchable. Soma doesn't care. His name grants silence. They took everything. They'll take more, not because they need it, because they want silence. Fear buys more loyalty than charity." Calliope crossed her arms. "How many are left in your familiar?" 5. All level 1. "Yes." I stood. Epimetheus looked up. "You're going." "I'm going to see your home." He lived in the southern sector, near the outer wall, where the stone turned rough and the lanterns stopped getting replaced. His familiar house was a former granary, 3 stories, half-roofed. 2 of the windows were boarded. The paint had peeled off the door completely. The air smelled like stale vegetables and oil. Inside, 4 others stood, 3 boys, 1 girl, young, uniforms tattered, gear second-hand mismatched. They stood when I entered, then froze when they saw I wasn't Epimetheus. "This is Rimura," he said. "He's helping." They didn't argue. The girl looked up. She couldn't have been older than 14. Red braid, scar on her temple. She held a practice blade, not sharpened. They're coming back tonight, she said quietly. I nodded. What's your name? Lethe. You laid this group? Yes. Show me the ledger. She didn't ask why. She went to the corner shelf and pulled down a cloth-wrapped book. I opened it and flipped through the pages, records of potion purchases, dates, rates, repayment. Not neat, but honest. The final page had no signature. You were tricked, I said. We didn't know. I'm not blaming you. Lethe swallowed. How many entrances? I asked. Just one. Basement. Collapsed. Rooftop access. Only if you jump from the well shed. I nodded again. Go about your evening as if nothing is wrong. She stared. You'll fight them. No, I'll speak to them. If they attack, then I'll fight them. They came at dusk. 3 of them, not soldiers, runners, muscle, dull eyes, fast hands, guild tags but no familiar crest on their clothes. That meant deniability. They walked up to the front door like they owned the block. One carried a wrapped bundle. The other 2 flanked him. They didn't notice me on the rooftop. I stepped off the edge and landed without a sound. They paused. I walked between them and the door, hands in my pockets. The leader, scar on his lip, heavy shoulders, frowned. You the doorman now? No, I said. Then move. No. He looked at me again, took in the coat, the mask, the fact that I didn't step back. You work for Epimetheus? No. Then this isn't your business. I looked him over, scanned the bundle. 2 false potion vials, alleged agreement, forged. The ink wasn't even dry. You've been overcharging 17 minor familiar for unlicensed product. 4 have paid. 9 have gone silent. You're using Soma's name. He hasn't authorized it. The man blinked. I don't know what you. You want payment, I said calmly. You'll get it in reverse. His hand twitched toward the bundle. I raised one finger. Try it, please. He hesitated, but didn't move. I stepped forward once. Go back. Tell whoever sent you that this territory is closed. One more approach, and your faces become public. The guild won't stop me, and Soma won't care. He didn't argue. But he didn't retreat yet either. You think you can protect all the rats in this city? He asked. I don't need to, I said. Just this one. He stared, then turned. They left without another word. Inside the house, Lethe waited near the window. You didn't kill them, she said. No. They'll come back. I hope so. She looked confused, then smiled. Only a little. Thank you. I nodded once. Back at Calliope's, I poured tea. She didn't speak, just watched. After 2 minutes, she asked, why? Because the gods stopped watching. They never started. Then someone has to. She leaned back. Epimetheus owes you now. He doesn't. I disagree. That's fine. Are you going to do this for every weak familiar? No, I said. Only the ones I notice. Calliope laughed softly. Not out of amusement, just exhaustion. You're going to ruin their balance. Yes. On purpose. Of course. She took the tea. Then I suppose we should start gathering names. Chapter 5. Stone in the Stream. It started with a knock. Not the hesitant kind Epimetheus brought, not the rhythm of messengers or guild reps. This one was harder, confident, 4 sharp strikes, deliberate, mechanical. A rhythm chosen by someone who wanted to be heard and didn't need permission. Lethe had already moved to the 2nd floor landing by the time I stood. Epimetheus was asleep. His children weren't. They waited quietly, training gear on, swords sheathed, Boots by the door, no panic, just tension held in the throat and shoulders. I stepped outside alone. The sun hadn't fully set, but the sky was copper-red. Orange light ran down the alley in wide lines, throwing long shadows across the stone. The men at the edge of the property weren't trying to hide. 9 this time. Not 3. 4 armed with short swords, 2 with spears. 1 had a staff. 2 stayed at the back, dressed like handlers, loose shirts, high boots, short gloves, not adventurers, not mages, enforcers. Slower than Soma's elite, but more experienced than debt pushers. The man in the front had 1 eye, not a wound, just the way he was born, short hair, clean-shaven, black leather armor, no crest. He wasn't here to make a deal. Rimuru, he said, voice flat. You came early, I replied. He nodded once. You knew we would. Yes. Then you understand what this is. I understand what you want it to be. His men started to spread out, 5 steps in either direction. Standard containment posture, angle the corners, draw attention to the center, force focus. They weren't here to talk. Lethe stood in the doorway behind me. Lethe, I said without turning, don't interfere. Yes. Good. The one-eyed man didn't draw his weapon. That made sense. I hadn't either. 3 options, he said. I waited. 1, you walk away. No retaliation, no follow-up. This location is tagged. You leave and we forget it. No. 2, you submit, sign a pact. You work off their debt with us. No. 3, you fail. He paused. I wasn't finished. You were. He exhaled through his nose, then moved his hand. That was the signal. The 2 flanks rushed forward first. Short blades angled low, non-lethal. They wanted to disable, not kill. That was smart. But not enough. I raised my left hand. Sticky steel thread. 5 strands launched outward, silent, invisible in daylight. Not sharp, coiled. They wrapped the left attacker's wrist, elbow, shoulder, and thigh in under a second, lifting him from the ground and snapping him sideways into the wall hard enough to knock him out instantly. The second one hesitated. Bad choice. I stepped forward and dropped my palm to the ground. Water blade. It formed in half a heartbeat, slicing low through both his ankles. Clean, surgical, bloodless from mana control. He dropped with a sound between a scream and a sob. The others froze. I didn't give them time to recover. Black lightning. 1 pulse, not fatal, straight through the staff user's chest. He dropped with a grunt. Paralysis would last at least an hour. 2 more hesitated on instinct. The spear users advanced to cover, but not fast enough. I ducked under the first strike, caught the haft mid-motion and twisted. His grip failed. I struck his knee with my elbow, magically reinforced, and the bone gave way cleanly. The spear shattered under magic sense, pressure. The last one, barehanded, reached for a crystal. Probably to signal. I stepped behind him instantly, with spatial motion. He blinked. Don't. He froze. I took the crystal from his fingers and crushed it between thumb and forefinger. You didn't bring a backup. He didn't move. I stepped away and looked back at the leader, the one-eyed man. He hadn't moved at all, but his eyes were calculating. Are we done? I asked. He exhaled slowly. No. That was good. I wanted him to think he could still try. He reached into his belt, slowly, and pulled out a small vial. Poison explosion, tracking dust. No, great sage. Scanned it immediately. Divine imbued flare. Soma crafted. Custom work. Expensive. Rare. He raised it. I didn't stop him. He crushed it between his fingers, and flung it high. The vial shattered midair. Light exploded above the alley, pure white, shot with gold, visible from 4 blocks in every direction. Not a call for backup. A message. Come watch. I narrowed my eyes. Movement. Fast. Magic sense flared. East roof, west wall, north alley. More arriving. 3 levels above the ones I'd just dropped. Silent footwork, enchanted greaves, aura suppression gear. Advanced runners, mid-tier familiar. Soma trained. This was no longer a debt enforcement mission. This was a response unit. Not for Lethe's familiar. For me. They were already watching. I stepped back toward the front door. Lethe. Yes. Get your team inside. Lock the windows. Don't leave until I call you. But I turned. Just enough for her to see my eyes. She closed the door without another word. I waited in the center of the alley. 1 breath. 2. Then the first one landed. Not silent. He didn't need to be. Level 3, silver crest on his shoulder, wine-colored sash around his waist. Soma familiar. Not rogue, not shadow. Official. His boots struck the stone with precision, sword drawn, not glowing, not testing. Just prepared. He looked at me. You're Rimura. I am. You attacked our men. They attacked Lethe's home. They were collecting a debt. It wasn't owed. You interfered. Yes. He didn't ask why. That meant he was professional. He was also blocking the street behind him now. 2 more dropped in, 1 from above, 1 from the side. Standard containment again. I checked my range. 30 meters in all directions. No civilians. Good. I didn't draw a weapon. I didn't shapeshift. I didn't need to. The first one charged. Level 3, fast, clean technique. Sword traced an arc low to high, meant to force a retreat or dodge. I walked forward instead. His blade met multi-layer barrier, twice reinforced, inner core mana fed. It stopped dead like it had hit stone. His eyes widened. I touched his shoulder. Black flame. The fire burst inward, not outward, compressed directly into his nerve system. Not lethal, not kind. He collapsed. Second attacker came from the side. 2 daggers, dual-wield, faint strike feint. I didn't let her finish. Sticky thread, core bind. The thread snapped around both her blades, forcing her arms backward behind her own shoulders, then forced her forward into the wall. She didn't scream. The third didn't move. He just raised both hands and stepped back. I'm not here for this, he said. They made the call, I was just assigned. I nodded once. He turned and left. No one else arrived. I waited another minute. Then I turned. Lethe opened the door. All 4 of her people were behind her. Alive and harmed. They looked at me the same way they had yesterday, but not quite. You didn't kill them, Lethe said. No. You could have. Yes. Why didn't you? Because fear fades, I said, but humiliation stays longer. She nodded. The others didn't speak. They didn't need to. Back at Calliope's, I didn't sit. She didn't ask questions. Just handed me a list. What's this? The other familiar being targeted. Same pattern. How many? 19. That was more than I expected. Do they know? Most don't, yet. I took the paper and folded it. I'll handle it. She raised an eyebrow. All of them. Not tonight, but yes. You can't protect them all. I don't need to. Then what are you doing? I looked at her. Changing the cost. She understood. She didn't argue. Chapter 6. The Quiet Between Words. The house was still. Calliope had fallen asleep in the armchair again, book resting open across her stomach, unread. Outside, the eastern sun had barely risen, casting soft gold light through the crooked shutters. Dust floated in the beams like suspended ash. I stood in the kitchen with a glass of water, watching the surface ripple faintly as my finger traced along the rim. The silence wasn't awkward. It never was for me. I'd gotten used to quiet a long time ago. Not because I feared sound. Because in silence, you hear what matters. Lethe's group hadn't woken yet. Their energy had settled. Even in rest, people breathed differently when they felt safe. It was subtle, barely perceptible to anyone without magic sense, but it told me enough. They trusted me, not as a god, not as a savior, just as someone who made the danger stop. It was enough. A soft knock tapped against the door. Not heavy, not nervous, just precise. 3 spaced raps, no signature rhythm, measured evenly, deliberate. Not a thug. I opened the door. A woman stood there, medium height, short hair dark grey, cut straight to the jaw, civilian clothes, guild badge barely visible under her collar, paper packet in one hand, light satchel over one shoulder, no visible weapons. But the way her weight was distributed, shoulders level, hips angled for pivot, told me she knew how to draw fast, and from which side. I didn't ask who she was. She stepped back half a pace and gave a short bow. I'm from the guild. May I come in? You're not here officially, I said. She straightened. Correct. I opened the door fully and stepped aside. She entered without hesitation. Calliope stirred slightly in the corner, then opened one eye. She looked at the woman, then at me. She said nothing. After a moment, she pulled the book from her chest, marked the page, and closed it. Tea? She asked the visitor. No, thank you. I gestured toward the table. The woman sat down. I sat across from her. She placed the paper packet on the table and unfolded it. Guild analysis, she said. Tracking combat incident reports from the Southern District last night. I looked at the page. A stylized street map, markings in red and blue, names scribbled in narrow columns. Unconfirmed resistance. No fatalities. Multiple suppression skills. The wording was carefully chosen. So you've heard, I said. Yes. You don't sound concerned. That depends on your answers. Calliope leaned back in her chair. Her eyes were closed again, but she was listening. The woman tapped the map. No formal complaint has been filed by Soma Familia, no deaths, no injuries reported to the guild. That's unusual. Is it? Most aggressive encounters are followed by accusations, territory claims, damage reports, especially when a rogue actor is involved. I looked at her. I'm not a rogue actor. No, she said. You're not registered at all. I didn't respond. She reached into her satchel and placed a second paper down. This one was thinner. A form. No guild seal, just a blank registry tag. Unofficial category. Field observer. Passive classification. It allows the guild to acknowledge your existence without assigning you status. I raised one eyebrow. You came to bribe me with bureaucracy. I came to keep you outside the system, safely, quietly. You're not here for that. She didn't answer. I pushed the form back toward her. Tell me why you're actually here. She met my gaze. After a second, she spoke. We don't understand what you are. That's not always a problem. We have gods, spirits, tamed beasts. Unknowns happen. But you're not acting like an unknown. You're interfering, not randomly, not violently, just enough to change flow, just enough to attract silence. That was closer to the truth. She studied my face, then added, and silence draws louder interest than screams. I nodded once. She waited. You want to know if I'm a threat? I said. Yes. I'm not. You've already destabilized a debt network that supported 2 mid-tier familia. They shouldn't have existed in the first place. Maybe, but the guild isn't built on fairness. It's built on balance. So you want me to stop? No. That surprised me, slightly. She placed a third item on the table. A token, not official, handmade, worn metal with an old sigil etched into the face, some long-defunct adventurer group's crest. They'll send someone soon, she said. Who? Someone who asks questions less politely. Freya. No, not yet. The ones below her. The ones who hope to rise by pointing out threats before she notices them herself. I touched the token lightly. What is this? Marker, she said. Old code, meant for runners who made friends in the wrong corners of the city. If you carry it, some will recognize it. What does it buy? A second chance to walk away, a second chance not to be labeled. And if I don't want to walk away? She smiled. It was thin, tired. Then make sure when you burn the bridge, you light it from both ends. I nodded once. She stood, adjusted her satchel, and bowed again. Your name? I asked. She paused at the door. Terry. I'll remember it. I know. Then she left. Calliope didn't speak for a while after the door closed. Then she said, she's not a soldier. No. She's not a spy. No. Then why is the guild letting her speak for them? Because they're not sure I'm worth provoking. Calliope opened her eyes again and looked at me. Are you? I finished my tea. That depends on whether they make me choose. That evening, Lethe sat across from me with a notebook in her lap. She didn't speak for nearly a minute. Finally, she said, we want to train. I looked up. She held her posture carefully, shoulders straight, arms loose at her sides, eyes steady. Not afraid, not proud. Just sure. You're not ready to level up, I said. We know. You want tactics. We want options. I nodded. Fine. She blinked, really. I said I'd protect this house. That includes strengthening it. What do you want from us? Nothing. Then. You'll train anyway. She nodded. I stood. Tomorrow, I said, dawn be on the roof. Bring your weapons, not sharpened. She grinned slightly. Why not sharpened? Because I want to see if your minds are faster than your blades. That night, I sat alone on the roof. Arario's skyline stretched out in full dimness. Lamps, candles, spellite. The tower loomed behind it all, tall, luminous, indifferent, a monument to ambition. The city didn't notice what I was doing. Not yet. But it would. I held the marker Terry gave me between 2 fingers and turned it slowly. Great Sage, results. No tracking enchantment, passive recognition only, worn by select guild operatives for symbolic value. What does the symbol represent? Deceased familiar, dissolved over 41 years ago, no remaining members registered, crest stored in obsolete registry. Intended to signal loyalty without allegiance. I nodded. Keep it catalogued, but don't use it yet. Understood. I watched the street below. 3 adventurers passed. Level 2s from a minor familiar, quiet, joking, tired. Alive. That mattered more than they knew. By morning, the roof held 4 figures. Lethe, her team. blades at the ready, eyes focused. They weren't strong, but they were trying. I stood at the edge, back to the sun. I didn't speak for a while. They waited. Then I said, "Your weapons don't matter yet. Your instincts do." They listened. Good. Chapter 7. Stones Cast Without Names. It started with something small. A letter. Folded once, sealed with neutral wax, delivered in silence by a messenger with no uniform, no crest, no words, just a nod, a handoff, and then the man walked away without looking back. I watched from the rooftop as Calliope opened it. She didn't flinch, didn't sigh. She just read it once, twice, then folded it again and placed it under her teacup. That was how I knew it was important. She didn't even glance up at me. I remained on the roof another 15 minutes, long enough to see who might be watching the house from a distance. No magic traces, no divine threads, no guild surveillance markers, only civilians, and that was worse. Because it meant whoever sent that letter knew how to avoid being noticed. When I finally came down, the teacup hadn't moved. The letter remained beneath it. Calliope still sat at the same spot, spine perfectly straight, face unreadable. She pushed the cup aside. I took the letter. I opened it. It wasn't long. To the goddess Calliope. The guild acknowledges your association with the unregistered anomaly Rimura. We are prepared to maintain silence regarding recent disturbances in the southern sector, provided this association remains passive. In the event of formal alignment, we will be forced to evaluate your status under Category 2 compliance. The city needs peace. We hope you understand. No signature, no crest, just handwriting, precise, impersonal, practiced. I looked at her. She returned the stare evenly. Well, she said, they're polite at least. Not really, I said. They're threatening me. They're testing you. I set the letter down and folded my arms. They don't know what I am yet, but they've started writing policies for me. She nodded. I won't file alignment, she said. You don't need to. But they want me to choose. They want to know how deep my roots go. I moved to the window and looked out. Lethe and the others were across the street, running drills on the rooftop of a broken granary. They'd been training for 3 days. Lethe already moved faster than she had. Her footing was improving. She didn't hesitate anymore. The others followed her without complaint. They weren't strong, but they were getting sharper. They'll come again, I said. Soon they'll use guild politics, not soldiers. Guild rep. No, I said. Someone worse. A quiet one. The kind that writes reports, not warnings. Calliope leaned forward slightly, tapping her finger once on the rim of her cup. I should meet them myself. I looked back at her. You sure? Yes. Why? Because they won't speak openly with you. They'll posture, they'll hedge, but I'm a goddess, and a weak one. They think I can still be pressured. They'll underestimate you. That's the plan. I nodded. The guild messenger arrived the next morning. Not a spy, not an enforcer. A clerk. He carried a case of scrolls, a satchel of ledgers, and wore a pair of spectacles with gold-rimmed lenses that made his eyes look slightly too large. He bowed at the threshold with mechanical precision. Calliope opened the door herself. Lady Calliope, he said, I've come at the guild's request to discuss recent procedural irregularities. She stepped aside. Irregularities? She asked. He smiled politely. Territory activity reports, divine affiliations, and combat interactions without registration. Calliope gestured to the table. Let's discuss. I stood by the hearth, arms crossed. The clerk didn't acknowledge me directly. He opened his case, pulled out 3 scrolls, and began reciting statistics. increases in unregistered magical use in Sector 4B, disruption in loan collection patterns, spikes in dungeon black market potion availability, fewer accidents, strangely, no unaccounted for deaths, no missing persons. It was a clever way to say, things are improving in a way we don't control. I don't see how this is linked to me, Calliope said calmly. The clerk didn't flinch. Your residence has become a convergence point. Adventurers previously listed as isolated are now forming patterns of cooperation. You've taken in unaffiliated parties. There have been no complaints, but there have been questions. From Soma Familiar, the Guild's Office of Street Regulation. One from a representative of Loki Familiar. That one I hadn't heard. I turned my head slightly. The clerk caught it and continued, minor inquiry, disregarded, but recorded. Calliope placed her hands flat on the table. I see. So you're asking me to disavow anyone I've spoken to? No, Lady Calliope. Merely to clarify the nature of your relationship with the anomaly known as Rimura. She nodded. You want to know if I've taken him into my familiar? Yes. I haven't. The clerk raised an eyebrow. And you have no plans to? I haven't decided. Then the guild would like to advise caution. Calliope leaned forward. And if I don't exercise that caution? The clerk blinked once. Then a formal Category 2 review would be scheduled, at which point any unregistered combatants associated with you would be subject to observation orders. Your remaining divine rights could be suspended for 72 hours pending review. Calliope smiled. It wasn't warm. It wasn't cold. Just exact. I see. The clerk began packing up. I hope this clarifies the guild's position. It does. Thank you for your time, Lady Calliope. She nodded once. He turned, paused, then looked at me for the first time. I don't suppose you'd be willing to explain why you've chosen this district. I met his eyes. No. He didn't argue. He left. Calliope didn't speak for a long time after he was gone. I didn't interrupt her. She sat back in her chair and closed her eyes. The moment I file alignment, she said, they stop asking, they start acting. Yes. They're afraid of you. They should be. But they're more afraid of what you represent. Which is change without permission. I sat down across from her. You could walk away from this, I said. Distance yourself. The letter gave you that chance. She didn't open her eyes. I won't. Why not? I'm tired of playing dead, so the city doesn't kick me. We sat in silence. Outside, Lethe shouted something. Laughter followed. Calliope said, they'll push harder next time. I know. They'll come after me, eventually. Yes. And what will you do then? Whatever's necessary. She finally opened her eyes and looked at me. You'll burn the guild down. If they try to erase you, yes. There was no pause in her breath. No fear. Just quiet agreement. That night, I walked the rooftops of the mid-district. Not to hunt. To watch. Guild agents moved in patterns. I tracked their routes, notes passed, names recorded, markers drawn in chalk on public walls, invisible to civilians. Observation lines, passive containment networks. They were preparing to box me in. Not because they feared I would destroy something, but because I already had. The black market potion trade in 3 sectors was gone. Lethe's crew was coordinating with 2 other dying familiar. Soma's quiet income had dropped, and no one had died. It was too clean. Too quiet. So now they were going to introduce noise. Back at Calliope's house, she left the tea out without asking. I sat. She handed me a folded sheet. What is it? Someone from Hephaestos' familiar wants to talk. I unfolded the note. It was short. We've heard things. We'd like to know if you're a thing worth hearing more of. Tsubaki. I didn't answer immediately. Calliope said, they're not looking for violence. No. They're looking for leverage. Or opportunity. She nodded. You'll go. Yes. She took the empty teacup, rinsed it, and set it aside. Then we plan for that. Chapter 8. Breath Beneath Stone. Lethe stood in the courtyard of the abandoned granary at first light, sword in hand, shoulders tight. She wasn't alone. The others were already there, Garin, Roke, and Hina. They wore the same mismatched armor I'd seen them train in for days. No new enchantments, no status upgrades, no hidden scrolls, just cloth, wood, steel, and effort. Their bodies were tired, not broken, not worn down, just used, well used. That was what I wanted to see. No hesitation. No one asked if they were ready. No one asked why now. Lethe was the first to speak. We're ready, she said, voice clear, balanced, not too loud, not false. I looked at her sword. It wasn't sharpened. Good. I nodded once, then we go. The descent into the dungeon didn't take long. We entered from the south entrance to avoid familiar traffic routes. Guild runners didn't patrol here often. Most adventurers with power preferred the upper plaza, the western steps, or the central lift routes under Babel. Lethe's group didn't speak on the way down. They followed in formation, one forward, one rear, two sides, not tight, not perfect, but consistent. On floor 1, they waited for instruction. I gave none. Keep moving, I said. They advanced slowly. The dungeon here was quiet. Monster generation had been irregular for weeks. That was fine. I wasn't here to test them against random encounters. I was here to see if they moved as one. 2 goblins appeared near the 5th corner. Standard spawn, slightly ahead of curve in aggression, but low stats. Garin engaged first. His axe swung with decent weight but too much recovery. Lethe adjusted, catching the second with a shoulder feint, then countered with a low kick. They dropped both in under 10 seconds. Clean. The bodies crumbled into stone, dust, and light, magic cores left behind. Lethe didn't turn to me. I said nothing. They kept walking. By the time we reached floor 2, the pace had changed. Garin's stance was lower. Hina had stopped shifting her grip every 10 seconds. Roke kept his shield high, not as a reaction, but because his body was learning where it belonged. Their breathing synced, slightly off but close. I walked behind them in silence. This wasn't a test for me. It was theirs. Lethe's hand stopped at one turn. I watched. She whispered, breath pattern, 1 maybe 2, left side. Good. I didn't say a word. They adjusted their formation. Garin took point, but his weapon lowered. Roke flanked. Lethe and Hina took the rear. A war shadow dropped from the ceiling. Lethe moved before it landed. Her sword rose to meet the arc, not a block, not a parry. A counter. It collided mid-fall, and her feet slid back, but the force transferred downward instead of knocking her off balance. Hina followed with a support strike, too slow. But only barely. The war shadow dissolved before it could scream. Lethe stepped back into formation. No one said a word. They just kept moving. On floor 3, they stopped. Lethe turned to me. We want to go further. She meant floor 4. I considered it. They had no Falna. No buffs. Only discipline. I studied them carefully. No open wounds, mana steady, no panic responses. Their minds were under control, not perfect but not fragile. Fine, I said, But if you enter, you leave clean. They nodded. We passed through. The air on floor 4 was thicker, humidity traced with monster scent. The walls narrowed here. The stone looked newer somehow. The dungeon pressed in closer. The light wasn't even. Here, goblins didn't test. They ambushed. And that's what happened. The moment we crossed the 7th arch, 5 emerged. 2 ahead, 1 behind, 2 from the upper ledges. Leithi's team didn't falter. They broke into formation immediately, no hesitation. Roke turned to guard the back. Garin charged the front left. Hina supported with mid-range coverage. Leithi took the one on the ledge. A proper split. But this time, one mistake happened. Roke shifted his stance too far left after deflecting a strike. He opened his side, and the second goblin behind him drove a blade toward his exposed ribs. Leithi didn't shout. She acted. She abandoned her target entirely, stepped into the open line, and took the blow in his place. It didn't penetrate fully, her armor held, but the hit threw her sideways, off balance. Hina reacted too slowly. I moved. Sticky thread caught the goblin's arm and yanked it backward mid-strike, hurling it against the opposite wall. It didn't get up. The fight ended seconds later. Silence followed. Leithi lay on her side, breath sharp but controlled. No internal damage, no break. She stood slowly. Blood ran down her side, but not heavily. Roke knelt beside her. You shouldn't have. She shook her head. No, she said, I'm team lead. That's not. I protect you. I didn't interrupt. Leithi turned to me. I made the call. I take the weight. Her voice didn't shake. I watched her carefully. She was still too slow. Still reactive. But her words weren't false. You're dismissed from floor 4, I said. She blinked. What? You're not ready to lead this deep. You made the right decision too late. You'll work at range until further notice. Her shoulders tightened. But she didn't argue. Roke helped her stand. Garin looked confused. We're going back up. No, I said. You're going deeper. Leithi protested, once. Quietly. I held her gaze until she nodded. She watched her team descend without her. She didn't ask for sympathy. She didn't look away. She simply sat by the wall, sword across her knees, breath shallow. She was learning what leadership felt like. I didn't soften the lesson. Garin's team reached floor 5. The first 10 minutes were quiet. Then came the mistake. Hina moved too far ahead during a corridor bend. The others didn't notice. A lone goblin, larger than average, charged her from the dark. She froze for half a second. No cover, no retreat line. I moved toward her. Then stopped. Roke stepped in. Not late. Not early. Just in time. He caught the goblin mid-charge, shield first, knocked it off balance, and drove his dagger under the ribs. A single thrust. Clean. Hina didn't thank him. She just reset formation. Good. When they returned to floor 1, Leithi stood at the entry. She didn't speak. Just joined formation again. The others made space for her automatically. They walked up without celebration. At the surface, Leithi met my eyes. We failed. No. We didn't stay together. No, but you came back. Because of you. No, I said, because you remembered each other. She looked down. Then nodded. It wasn't pride. It wasn't guilt. It was growth. That evening, Calliope had already brewed tea. I didn't sit. She didn't ask. They'll survive, I said. That's not enough. No, I agreed, but it's the first line. She took a slow sip. They won't survive this city. No. Then why are you training them? Because I want them to know what it means to survive without begging. She set her cup down. I did. I know. We didn't speak for a while. Then she said, one of Loki's runners asked after you again. I nodded. When? An hour ago, quietly. What did you say? That you weren't home. Good. She smiled faintly. Outside, Lethe stood alone in the yard, practicing her footwork. Not drills. Just movements. No sword. No audience. That was when I knew she'd be fine. Eventually. Chapter 9. Sparks that don't fade. The forge was deep, far beneath the main street, past the public storefronts of Hephaestos Familiar. No signs led to it. No guild maps listed its location. The only way to find it was to be invited. I hadn't been. But the paper that Calliope gave me 2 days ago contained a single line. Tsubaki's looking for a conversation. You'll know where. I did. I didn't need magic to find places like this. I needed awareness. How the heat curled in the wrong direction near alley vents. How soot clung to specific corners of a stone wall where it shouldn't. How heavy footsteps stopped short of echo at the same spot on the third-tier stairwell near the northern trade ramp. Magic sense confirmed it within a 10-meter radius. Steel, ember, residual divine particles, and someone too heavy-footed to be a normal human walking at an unnatural tempo, slow enough to make you notice, loud enough to tell you to stay back. I reached the final door before noon, reinforced, oaken iron, not locked. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The heat was immediate, not painful, not even harsh, but constant, alive. It wasn't just a forge. It was a smith's domain. Wide floor space, blackened walls, workbenches set in 2 tiers, 10 anvil stations, 7 with hammers at rest, weapon racks, tool hooks, cooling chambers half full with dull red longswords and glaives. Runes glowed faintly in the stone. A woman stood near the back. Broad shoulders, tan skin, long red scar across her right temple, one eye covered with a thick leather band, muscles like carved stone. Her sleeveless tunic was soaked in sweat. Her gloves were black with char and ash. She didn't look up when I entered. You're quiet, she said. You're not. She grinned slightly, didn't stop working. I watched as she struck the heated edge of a half-finished axe with rhythmic precision. Not rushed, not slow, measured. She didn't ask who I was. She didn't need to. I waited. When she finished the shaping pass, she dropped the metal into the cooling tank with a hiss. Then she wiped her forehead with the back of her arm, turned, and looked at me. Her visible eye was sharp, brown maybe, hard to tell in the forge light. You Rimura. I am. You don't smell like one of ours. I'm not. Good. She walked toward the nearest bench, picked up a jug of water, drank half of it, and tossed the rest over her neck. It steamed when it hit. Then she grabbed a practice blade from the rack and tossed it to me without warning. I caught it one-handed. It was heavier than standard, meant to test grip, not speed. You didn't ask why I'm here, I said. I don't need to, she replied. You showed up, that's enough. She picked up her own blade, matched weight, dull edge, iron core balance, not for killing. 3 exchanges, she said. Why? Because words are useless without weight. I nodded. We moved to the center. The forge floor had been cleared for this. No dust, no obstructions, no observers. She struck first. Diagonal slash, upper left to lower right, fast, heavy, decisive. I raised my blade to intercept, not block, not parry, just redirect. Her blow landed with a jolt. The force sent dust scattering along the floor, but I didn't shift. She stepped back. Solid, she muttered. Second strike came low. A feint. She turned it into a rising uppercut slash at the last second, aiming for my shoulder. I ducked under, stepped into her guard, and tapped her hip with the flat of my blade. She grinned. Third came faster. No feint, no test. A straight thrust. I deflected it to the right with a single twist, caught her wrist with my free hand, and stepped behind her. She didn't resist. Nice, she said. I released her wrist. She turned, rolling her shoulders. Technique S weird, she said. Not Arario standard. It's mine. Good balance, no extra steps. You tested me already. No, that was just warming up. She tossed her blade aside. Now we talk. I set mine down. We sat on the bench near the wall. No stools, no tea, just heat, sweat, and space. You've been making waves, she said. I'm aware. You're not aligned with anyone. Not formally. You want something. Not right now. She laughed, short, not mocking. You're more dangerous than you look. Most people are. No, most people pretend. You don't. Pretending takes effort. I save mine. She picked up a rag, wiped her face again, then looked at me. Why are you helping Calliope? Because she didn't ask me to. That's not an answer. It's the only one I'll give. She nodded. Fair enough. Silence passed for a while. Only the sound of cooling metal filled the air. Finally, she said, I've made blades for all kinds. Loki's brats, Freya's hounds, even Ganesha's freaks. They all want the same thing. Power. No, she said. Certainty. I watched her hands. She was still holding the rag, twisting it slowly. Everyone here's chasing something they can't touch. You're different. How? You're not chasing, you're watching, and that scares people more. I didn't respond. She tossed the rag aside. I'll offer you one blade, she said. Not now, later, but only if you answer a question. Ask. Where does it stop? I blinked once. She didn't clarify. Didn't explain what it meant. She didn't need to. She meant the influence, the quiet changes, the threads I was pulling. The damage, I asked. No, she said, the decisions. I looked at the forge wall. No magical flames, no divine artifice. Just a heat. Real heat. It doesn't, I said. It just shifts. She nodded. That was all she needed. You'll have your weapon, she said, when I'm ready. I'll wait. No rush. You're not in a war yet. Not yet. She stood, rolled her shoulders again, and returned to her anvil. Conversation over. I left without another word. Outside, the wind felt colder than it should have. I walked 3 blocks in silence, replaying the conversation. Not her words. Her rhythm. Tsubaki didn't ask for power. She didn't demand loyalty. She offered weight. That mattered. Not everyone in this city understood that strength didn't come from force. It came from choices. Hers was clear. She didn't need to know who I was. She just needed to know that when I moved, it meant something. Calliope was at the table when I returned. She looked up once, then down again. How was the fort? Hot. She smiled faintly. She didn't offer you a weapon for free. No. She made you earn it. Yes. Good. Lethe sat in the corner, polishing her boots. She looked up. How hard did she hit you? I raised an eyebrow. Lethe smirked. Calliope asked, what did she want? To know where it stops. Calliope's hand paused over her teacup. Did you tell her? Yes. She didn't ask the answer. She didn't need to. That night, the house was quiet. No messengers, no guild runners, no threats. Just breath. Wait. Time. I sharpened my awareness, extending magic sense across a 6-block radius. Passive surveillance. Still no movement. The city was breathing in. Waiting. It didn't know what to do with me. That was good. It meant I had more time. Chapter 10. The Eyes That Watch Softly. It happened with no warning. No knock, no flare, no magical trace in the air. Just the door opening at dawn, silently, precisely, with the kind of mechanical grace no mortal could manage while half the city still slept. I didn't move from my place in the far corner of the room. I'd been up since before sunrise. I'd already sensed her the moment she stepped into range. No hostility, no weapon, just a presence, controlled, measured, exact. Calliope looked up from her tea. She didn't speak. Lethe was already out, training in the back. The others were asleep. I hadn't woken them. No reason to, not yet. The woman who entered wore no crest, no sigil. Her armor was light, sleeveless, stitched in tones of grey and crimson. Her hair was short, pale violet, not silver, not Freya's people, not red, not Loki's brats, something between. Her eyes were sharper than they needed to be. That told me everything. She didn't bow. She didn't smile. She just said, "My goddess would like a moment of your time." Calliope sipped her tea again. Which one? The woman tilted her head. Loki. I stood. She looked at me next. Her gaze didn't waver, not from curiosity, not from confidence, but from training. You're Rimuru. I am. She doesn't like mysteries, the woman said, and you've become one. I don't dislike her. That's not the same as being useful. No, I said, but it's close. Calliope stood. He hasn't joined me. I know, the scout said. She stepped further into the room. The quiet of her movement wasn't magical, it was practiced. No aura flared, no mana rose. A physical body trained to move in silence. That narrowed her down to a handful of Loki familiar members. But not Tiona, not Tione, not Bete. She wasn't a frontliner. She was a handler. She produced a scroll and set it gently on the table. Loki wanted this delivered. You weren't at your registration address. That address burned down 12 years ago, Calliope said. The woman smiled faintly, not friendly, just amused. She wanted to speak with you before things got crowded. I picked up the scroll. Unsealed, that was smart. If it were magical, I'd have burned it on contact, but it was. Plain parchment, inked with care, handwritten. Loki's handwriting, slanted, loose, half-drunken script but still clear enough. To the lovely Calliope. You're not usually involved in city politics, but you've managed to attract a walking disaster without a banner. I admire that. I'd like to talk. Come to my manor. Bring your quiet friend if you think he'll behave. Don't make me send someone louder. L. I set the scroll down. She's nervous, I said. No, the scout corrected. She's preparing. That was closer to the truth. Calliope glanced at me. Do you want to go? Yes. She turned back to the scout. Then we'll come. The woman didn't flinch. She gave a shallow bow. 3 hours from now. Rear garden gate. Don't use the front. Then she left. Still no noise, not even when the door closed. I stood for another full minute after she was gone. Calliope said, "You already knew this would happen." Yes. She thinks she's early. She's not. She thinks you're pretending. She'll learn. The rear gate of Loki Familiar's estate wasn't locked. That was their way of sending a message. You're not important enough to use the front, but you're dangerous enough that we won't block the path. It wasn't an insult, it was positioning. The manor grounds were quiet. No guards watched us enter. No servant stepped out to greet us. But I felt the eyes. Magic sense confirmed 5 active scouts watching from the 2nd floor, 3 on the roof, 1 embedded directly in the garden wall. Passive, professional. I ignored them. Calliope walked beside me with her usual pace, unhurried, serene, unimpressed. We crossed the gravel path in silence. Loki waited alone. No guards, no chair, no wine cup, just her, leaning against a tree, arms folded, 1 foot kicked up against the bark, hair loose. She grinned when she saw us. "Thought you'd send the slime without company," she said. Calliope smiled politely. "You asked for both of us." "I also asked for the quiet one," Loki said. She turned to me. "You're not very good at hiding." "I haven't tried yet." She laughed, short, sharp. "You look like a tamer's experiment," she said. "You look like a merchant's lie." "Ooh, that's good." She pushed off the tree and stretched. "So, you've been busy." "I've moved." "Moved quietly," she admitted. "Clean, neat, that's what bothers me." "You're used to blunt force." "I'm used to knowing what someone wants." "And me." "You don't want anything." I didn't answer. She grinned again. "That's the problem." Calliope stepped forward. "You're worried he'll destabilize the others." "I'm worried he'll make the rest of us look stupid," Loki said. "Because we've spent years building networks and backdoors, and this little monster just walks in, no permission, no banner, and people start listening to him." I stayed still. "You haven't killed anyone," she continued. "You haven't stolen, burned, or invaded. You haven't insulted a single god. You're polite, reserved, tactical, which means if I attack you, I look petty, but if I ignore you—" "You look blind," I said. She nodded. "Exactly." Calliope tilted her head. "So you called us here to ask for his submission?" "No," Loki said. "I called you here to ask if you're still independent." Calliope blinked. "I am." "Then I'll ask you both the same thing," Loki said. "What do you want?" "Stability," Calliope said. I answered second. "Space." Loki frowned. "Not power." "No." "Not revenge." "No." "Not recognition." "No." She stared at me for a long moment. Then finally, she sighed. "You're serious?" "Yes." "Then what happens when they come after you?" "I deal with them." "And if I come after you?" "Then I deal with you too." She laughed again, louder this time. "Gods, I like you." I didn't smile. "I won't align with anyone," I said. "Not unless I decide it's necessary." "And the goddess here." She offered peace. I accepted. "Fair." She stepped closer, stopped a few feet from me. "You're stronger than you look," she said. "Yes." "Freya's watching you." "I know." "She's patient." "I'm not afraid of her." "You should be." "No," I said. "She should be careful." Loki exhaled slowly. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a token, flat, metal, marked with a broken crescent. "This gets you through my estate without questions. One time." She tossed it to me. I caught it. "Why give this to someone you don't control?" I asked. "Because I want to see what you do with it." I looked at Calliope. She looked amused. Loki turned away. "Don't make me regret this," she said. "I won't." She waved a hand lazily. "Go on then, play nice, or play smart, I don't care, but don't play slow. The city's already shifting." We left without speaking again. Back in Calliope's house, I placed the token on the table. Lethe picked it up and turned it over in her hands. Did you win? No. Then what happened? She stopped trying to test me. Lethe smiled. Then she asked, what does she want? Same thing everyone wants when they can't control something. Distance. No, I said, understanding. Lethe set the token down. What happens next? I looked out the window. The pieces move. Chapter 11, when the hunter blinks. I felt him watching before he made his presence known. It wasn't a god's gaze, not divine, not weighted with judgment or curiosity. This wasn't the omnipresent pressure of a deity's blessing, nor the subtle chill of a caster reaching too far with observational magic. It was a sword, half drawn. A killing intent so clean it didn't even press against the skin. Most wouldn't have noticed it at all, but I did. Alan Fromel. Level 6. First sword of Freya. Her favorite hound. He was watching me. From above, from a shadowed ridge of the dungeon's fourth floor wall, crouched at the outer ring of my magic sense. He didn't approach, didn't attack, just observed. I didn't turn toward him. I didn't acknowledge him. Not yet. Lethe's group was 6 meters behind me, struggling with an ambush. Goblins again, 3, one of them larger than average, likely enhanced by unstable spawn timing. It wasn't meant to be a serious threat, but they were off rhythm. Garin stepped late into a feint. Hina overextended. Lethe compensated. She didn't flinch when the blade glanced off her shoulder. She countered hard, too hard. She dropped the monster, but exposed her left side. I let it happen. I didn't help. Alan would see that too. Lethe turned slightly toward me, just a glance, checking to see if she'd be reprimanded. I gave nothing in return, just stood, watching. The last goblin fell. The dust hadn't even settled before Hina stepped forward, panting. That wasn't supposed to be that close. Then don't make it close, I said. Lethe wiped blood off her gauntlet. We were too slow. Yes. You're not going to say more. No. She frowned. Why not? Because if you need a speech to understand your own mistake, then you shouldn't be down here. That shut them up. Lethe nodded. They reset formation. They were getting stronger. Not faster, not more talented, but more honest. That mattered. I turned away. And that's when Alan moved. Not fast. Just enough. He dropped from the ledge and landed 30 meters behind us without a sound. Dust shifted. Mana brushed the edges of my perception. No hostility yet, just presence. Lethe froze. Ahoo. Don't turn, I said. She stopped. I faced forward and spoke clearly. You've come. His voice followed, low and smooth. Only to look. Freya doesn't send eyes that don't bite. A pause. Do you think you're worth biting? I turned. He didn't move. Alan stood in the center of the path, one hand near the hilt of his blade. It wasn't drawn. His eyes were clear, pale violet, reflecting none of the madness that sometimes crept into the gaze of Freya's chosen. I met his stare evilly. I think your goddess already decided I was worth watching. Alan said nothing. Lethe and her team remained behind me, silent, watching, knowing this wasn't their moment. I took one step forward. Alan didn't retreat. Why are you here? I asked. To see how you move. Have you seen enough? No. I nodded once. Then follow. I turned. He didn't answer. But I heard the steps. We continued for another hour. Floor 5, floor 6. I let Lethe's group lead. I gave no commands. Alan stayed behind me, never spoke, never interfered, just watched. When we reached a safe chamber, Lethe finally turned to me. He's following. Yes. Why? Because he hasn't found anything better to do today. Should we stop? No. They rested. I did not. I walked to the edge of the chamber, turned toward the corridor, and spoke. You've seen enough. Alan stepped forward. No surprise, no pretense. I've seen your restraint. Not my power. I don't care about power. Then you're the only one in your familiar who doesn't. He shrugged. She wanted observation, not judgment. She'll get both. Alan looked at me for a long time. You've disrupted 3 black market flows, reorganized 6 minor familiar. You've publicly opposed Soma without naming him, embarrassed 2 guild agents, and somehow avoided divine entanglement. Yes. You don't even use the dungeon. You let your team do the work. Yes. You're not here for power. No. Then what are you building? I stepped forward until we stood 4 paces apart. Equilibrium. That's not how Arario works. It will. Alan tilted his head. And if Freya wants you to stop? She hasn't asked. And if she does, then she'll have to do more than send a dog to sniff. Alan didn't flinch. I didn't move. The silence stretched. Then he said, You're not afraid of her. No. You're not afraid of me. Should I be? He smiled, not mockingly, not cruelly, just faint amusement. No. Then he stepped back. I'll report what I saw. I expect you to. I'll be back. I hope not. He turned and walked away. He didn't look over his shoulder. He didn't vanish with magic. He just walked, confident, measured, done. Lethe approached quietly once he was gone. Who was that? Freya's knife. He didn't attack. No. But he could have. Yes. She paused. Would you have one? I looked at her. I don't lose. She nodded. She believed me. That was enough. Back at Calliope's house, I told her everything. She didn't blink. I'm surprised she waited this long, she said. She wanted to see how I'd respond to indirect pressure. And she knows now. Calliope poured tea. She'll wait. She'll try. Calliope sipped. You're not interested in her. No. She's used to that working. She'll adjust. Calliope smiled faintly. She'll send someone else next. Yes. And then I'll let them talk. And if they don't want to, I looked at her. Then I'll let them try. That night, Lethe sat alone on the roof. I joined her. She didn't turn. He was strong. Yes. Strong enough to kill us. Easily. Not you, though. No. She nodded slowly. I don't like being this far behind. You don't have to like it. I want to catch up. You won't. She looked at me. Ever. Not to me, I said, but you'll pass the ones who think they're ahead. She looked back toward the skyline. Good. She meant it. The next morning, a small box sat at the door. And marked. I opened it. Inside, a silver pin, shaped like a raven. No magic, no curse. Just meaning. Freya had moved again. But she hadn't made noise. That meant she still wasn't ready. Which meant I still had time. Chapter 12. Silver Invitations, Silent Declines. The pin didn't carry magic. That mattered. It was made of silver, polished to a mirror finish, shaped like a raven with its wings drawn inward, defensive posture, not aggressive. Freya didn't attach a message. No name, no parchment, just the item. She didn't need to sign it. The meaning was clear. She'd seen Alan's report. She understood I hadn't escalated, that I hadn't retaliated, that I hadn't hidden. I'd let her see everything. That was intentional. So her next move would be subtle. And it was. The envoy arrived 3 days later. Not a familiar member, not a scout, not even someone with a formal tie to Freya's public operations. Just a civilian face, older man, dressed in clean robes, walked with a cane. No guild badge, no divine aura, nothing about him marked him as significant. Except that I couldn't sense him until he was 3 meters from the door. That wasn't stealth, that was intentional erasure. I opened the door before he knocked. He inclined his head. Master Rimuru. No need for that. Lady Freya sends her regards. She could have sent a letter. The man smiled faintly. She prefers tone to ink. I don't doubt that. He didn't ask to be let in. He waited. I stepped aside. He entered like he'd been here before. Calliope stood at the corner of the room, drying herbs. She didn't speak. Lethe was on the roof. I didn't call her down. The man sat at the table, adjusted his robes, and opened a small wooden case. Inside, parchment, sealed with red wax. The wax didn't carry magic either. No curses. No binding. Just scent. Freya's aura, pressed into the seal like perfume into fabric, faintly floral but cool beneath it. The smell of something beautiful and unfinished. The old man didn't push it toward me. He just let it sit between us. An invitation, he said. Neutral ground, public, light security. Location. The old Crystal Gallery, West District, former Elven Art Hall. I raised an eyebrow. That hasn't been used in a decade. Precisely. I picked up the envelope and turned it once in my hand. Purpose. To observe, to speak, nothing more. She's choosing diplomacy now. She is choosing elegance. She rarely chooses humility. Even gods change their tools when the stone doesn't crack. He said it calmly, without pressure, without threat. That was important. She was letting me refuse. I looked at Calliope. She said nothing. I opened the envelope. Inside was a single line. No titles, no audience, just a quiet room and an honest voice. Signed with a simple character. F. I set it down. No. The man nodded. He didn't ask why. He closed the box, tied it with a thin string, and placed it back in his coat. She'll be disappointed. She expected this. She hoped. Hoping is dangerous. She would agree. The man stood. He didn't bow again. Just walked to the door. Before he opened it, he paused. She doesn't need to own you, he said, but she does want to understand you. I didn't respond. Then he left. Calliope waited another minute before she spoke. She'll try again. Yes. She won't like hearing no twice. She'll try a third time. Calliope turned back to her herbs. Then what? Then we find out if she's willing to lose. That night, I sharpened the threads. Not physically, not with blade or forge. I adjusted the boundary of magic sense, layered it differently, not wider, deeper. I aligned it with the emotional frequencies of mana signatures. Hunger, rage, resentment, worship, envy. Freya's attention always carried envy, even when she wasn't watching directly. It was faint now. Distant. Still present. But she hadn't chosen to move again yet. She was giving me space. That was more dangerous than a challenge. Because it meant she hadn't decided what I was. Not a rival. Not a tool. Not prey. Something else. Something she hadn't seen before. Lethe didn't mention the visitor. She'd seen him. She always did. Her instincts had sharpened fast in recent weeks, not to the level of perception I had, but enough to feel tension in the air. "Are we leaving soon?" she asked the next morning. "No." "Then she's not coming again." "She is." "When?" "When I decide to make the next move." She raised an eyebrow. "You're going to her." "No," I said. "I'm going around her." Lethe tilted her head. "How?" "By walking through the spaces no one notices." "You're being vague again." "No," I said. "I'm being careful." Lethe nodded once, then returned to her drills. She didn't like being out of sync. She'd learned to live with it. 2 days later, another note arrived. No courier, no footsteps, just a slip of parchment under the kitchen door before dawn. Calliope found it. It wasn't signed, but I recognized the handwriting. "Loki, just a heads up, your silver-eyed suitor's getting impatient. If you don't want a shrine built in your honor or your grave, I'd suggest making a countermove. Unless, of course, you like being watched. In which case, carry on. P.S. You're more fun than most of my kids." Calliope passed me the note without comment. I burned it. She didn't ask why. That evening, I made the choice. Not to go to Freya. To go to the ones she ignored. I dressed plainly. No visible weapon, no cloak. I walked alone. Through the market. Through the side streets. Into the places where minor familiar made camp. The ones scraping by. The ones not invited to galas. The ones Freya and Loki both considered background noise. I didn't give them gifts. I didn't make promises. I just asked one thing. What would you do if the strongest person in the city stopped looking down? Some answered with silence. Some laughed. Some listened. But all of them remembered. By nightfall, I had no signatures, no contracts, no vows. But I had 35 names. 35 people who now knew I existed. Not as a god. Not as a patron. As a presence. That was the beginning. Freya would notice. She always noticed the wind just before the leaves turned. Chapter 13. Her voice unsoftened. I knew it was her before she crossed the threshold. Not from magic, not from presence. From silence, the kind of silence that bent the world around it. The wind outside the house stopped. The leaves above the roof froze in their branches. A cat 2 buildings down fled its perch and didn't look back. No divine aura poured through the city. No light show. No trumpets. Just her footsteps, bare against stone. A rhythm that did not ask for permission. Freya came alone. I was in the main room. Calliope was at the table. Lethe and the others had been sent out at dawn for an errand that didn't need doing, and I'd made sure they wouldn't come back early. Freya did not knock. She opened the door with a hand that was not wrapped in magic or divine intent, just a hand. I stood, Calliope didn't. Freya stepped into the house as if it were hers. Her hair fell like water down her back, not perfectly arranged but untangled. Her clothes were simple, grey travel robes, silver clasp, no armor. Her eyes were pale and sharp and alert, but her lips were relaxed. She closed the door behind her. Then she looked at me. No smile. No welcome. No need. I've come to speak. Calliope set down her tea and gestured to the second chair. Then speak. Freya didn't move to sit. She stood near the entrance, arms loose at her sides. I've waited, she said. I've sent eyes, I've sent words, I've watched. You've ignored all of them. Yes, I said. You've made ripples. Not waves. Not yet, she admitted. She looked around the room, not with disdain, but observation. as if taking stock of everything she might need to understand later. Her gaze paused on the hearth, the plain cups, the thin woven rug that Calliope refused to replace. "You're quiet," she said. "That bothers you." She met my eyes. "It interests me. Same thing to most gods." Her fingers twitched slightly, not magic, habit. She stepped closer, still not smiling. "You're powerful." "Yes." "Not just strong." "No." "You've broken the city's rhythm, and you haven't raised your voice once." "Have I broken anything?" "Not yet," she said, "but you will." I waited. She stepped closer again, 3 meters now. "You've been tested," she said. I noticed. "Alan didn't impress you." "No. Not because he's weak, but because you're not afraid of death. Because I'm not surprised by it." Her head tilted slightly. "Are you planning something?" "I'm already doing something." "And what's that?" "Changing the rules." "Whose rules?" "Yours." She paused. For the first time, something behind her eyes shifted. Not anger, not confusion. Attention. "You think you understand me. I understand what you've built. That's not the same." "I know." She moved again. 1 meter now, close enough to strike, close enough to whisper. "You're not loyal to Calliope." "No." "You're not in love with her." "No." "You haven't sworn anything." "I don't need to." Freya's voice didn't rise. "I've watched hundreds try to play this game. Most of them die. A few become interesting. I'm not playing." "That's the difference," she said. "You're not pretending, you're not pushing. And that makes you uncomfortable. It makes me consider the shape of the world after you've carved your part into it." I stepped forward, closed the distance. "I'm not interested in your throne." She raised an eyebrow. "But you'll keep building," she said. "Yes." "You'll keep protecting." "Yes." "You'll keep drawing people to you. They come by choice." She didn't blink. "That's what scares me." There was no drama in her voice, no accusation, just clarity. Then she said something I hadn't expected. "May I sit?" I nodded. She sat, crossed one leg over the other. Calliope refilled her cup. "Tea?" she asked. "No." Freya folded her hands. "You're not from here." "No." "You're not like them." "No." "But you act like you belong." "I do." "Why?" "Because I'm here." "That's not enough for me." "It doesn't need to be." Freya stared at me, long, without words, without pressure. It wasn't seduction. It wasn't power. It wasn't testing. It was the first honest silence I'd seen from her. "Then you're afraid of nothing." "Incorrect." She blinked once. "I'm afraid of waste," I said, "of momentum lost, of time stolen by cowards, of cities that rot from the inside." Her voice dropped slightly. "You've lived through that before." "Yes." "You remember it clearly." "Yes." Calliope didn't speak. She didn't need to. Freya sat back slightly in the chair. "I want to understand you." "You don't." "Then I want to know where not to step." I considered that. "You want to build around me." "If you won't build with me." "Then no." "Why?" "Because I'm not a landmark." "You are now." I stood still. Freya didn't move. Then she reached into her robe. No weapon. Just paper. A folded note. She set it on the table and didn't push it forward. "No contracts," she said. "No terms, just an offer. Read it if you want. Burn it if you don't." I didn't reach for it. What does it say? That you may enter my garden anytime. No surveillance, no questions, no debt. That's not how you operate. It is now. Calliope raised an eyebrow. Why? Freya stood. I don't want you as an enemy. I'm not your enemy. You're not my friend either. Does that matter? It will. She walked toward the door. Paused. Looked back once. There's a storm coming, she said. There always is. But this time, she said, you're the eye. Then she left. No weight in her steps. No fear. No permission asked. I didn't touch the note for another hour. Calliope didn't ask why. When I finally opened it, I found only 5 words. You don't need to choose. There was no signature. Later that night, Lethe returned with the others. They brought food, cheap street fare, burnt on one side, still hot. Lethe sat on the stairs and watched me. You saw someone today. Yes. Freya. Yes. She bit into the bread. She leave alive. Yes. Why? She listened. Lethe nodded. She going to come again? No. You believe that? Yes. Lethe looked down at her hand. Then said, you scare her. No. She scares everyone else. She isn't everyone. She thinks you'll break something. She's right. Lethe smiled. Then went quiet. I burned the note before dawn. I didn't need to carry it. The message was understood. The board was full now, and no one knew what game we were playing. Chapter 14. They wrote nothing down. The letter from the guild arrived before sunrise. Plain paper, folded 3 times, no seal, no courier, left at the doorstep without a single footprint in the mud outside, no magical residue, no divine traces. They wanted us to know it wasn't a request. Calliope opened it in silence. She was standing by the sink, hands still wet from washing herbs, her sleeves pushed to her elbows. Lethe and the others were asleep upstairs. I watched from the corner of the room. I hadn't moved since midnight. Calliope read the message once, then she folded it again, carefully, exactly how it had come. She looked at me. They want me in the council chamber, she said. I nodded, expected. They gave no reason. They wouldn't. She didn't sigh. She didn't speak again for a long time. She wiped her hands dry with a cloth and then poured tea. Steam lifted from the clay cup but didn't move toward the window. No wind. I said, they'll ask politely first. And after. They'll try to remove me. She didn't disagree. We walked to the guild just after second bell. Calliope wore her old robes, navy blue, threadbare at the sleeves, a nod to the years when they still remembered her name. I wore the same coat I always did, nothing ceremonial, no weapons visible. Lethe offered to come. I told her no. The tower wasn't crowded when we arrived. The streets outside were quieter than usual, fewer merchant carts, no recruiting stalls. Someone had issued an unspoken notice. No one interfered as we entered. The council chamber was underground, past 3 locked doors and 1 pressure-warded hall. Normally they would have left a guard, a scribe, at least a receptionist to show us in. But today there was only silence. I opened the last door myself. 7 chairs in a semicircle. 6 were filled. Gods, mortals, rankers. The central figure was a tall man in a brown guild uniform, Barad Talvon. He'd held his position for 20 years, managed more disasters than most gods bothered to notice. He was not arrogant, he was precise, and he was afraid. The others were lesser in name, but not in pull. One of them was an ex-priest of Myach, One was a guild tactician. The woman on the far right was a mortal with no falna, but she held 4 entire trade districts in her name. They didn't speak as we entered. Calliope stepped forward. She didn't bow. Birad gestured to the chair across from him. Please. She didn't sit. Neither did I. Birad cleared his throat. This is not a formal summons. Calliope tilted her head. Then why are there 6 of you? One of the others, a thin man with red ink on his cuffs, spoke. You've taken in a disruptive element. Calliope said nothing. Your ally, Rimura, has interfered with guild-advised proceedings. He has involved himself in internal familiar matters, disrupted trade agreements, and more concerningly, created a political weight disproportionate to your standing. Disproportionate, Calliope repeated. To your size, your assets, your rank. I took 1 step forward. They all noticed. Birad raised his hand. We are not here to accuse. Then speak plainly, Calliope said. The tactician on the left cleared his throat. We want to confirm that your current companion is acting under your guidance. He's not. That silence lasted longer. The woman on the right leaned forward. Then we need to know what he wants. I answered. I want no throne, no territory, no contract. She frowned. Then why interfere? Because you failed. In what? In everything, I said. You watch the city rot. You weigh neutrality like gold. You hold your tongues while Soma poisons children and Freya enslaves men through loyalty disguised as affection. You keep the dungeon sealed to those who need it and open to those who bleed for spectacle. Birad's voice remained steady. We maintain balance. You maintain appearance. He didn't answer. I walked forward until I stood just beside Calliope. I'm not yours. I'm not hers. I'm not interested in obeying rules that were written to protect cowards. The red-inked man spoke again. This city has survived for centuries. Because no one's strong enough to change, it has bothered to stay. They looked at me. They didn't interrupt. I kept my voice low, calm, even. I am not changing it because I want to. I'm changing it because I'm still breathing. That's all. That's enough. Birad's eyes flicked toward Calliope. You support this. I support reality, she said, and he's the only one here who speaks like he understands it. They didn't like that, but they couldn't argue with it. The tactician tried anyway. The guild has policies in place for interference. I'm not interfering, I said. I'm correcting. You have no authority. I don't need it. That quieted him. The woman leaned back. Birad sighed. We can't allow destabilization. Then stabilize, something worth defending. He looked tired. Older than he had when I entered. We can't control you. No. And if we tried, I'd leave nothing behind. He believed me. Calliope said, then don't try. Birad stood slowly. The others followed. This meeting never happened. Calliope turned. I waited. Birad looked at me one more time, not with challenge. With fear. You're not what we expected. No, I said. You expected someone who needed you. Outside, the air was warmer. Lethe met us 2 streets away. She didn't ask what happened. She just looked at my face, then nodded. You're not banned. No. She grinned, then they're scared. They should be. That evening, I sat on the roof. The city looked the same, but I could feel the shape of it changing. Pressure points, old alliances, eyes turning from one tower to another. Someone new would try to test me again, but not yet, not this week. Calliope sat beside me, no words. Lethe joined a few minutes later. She didn't speak either. Below us, Garin was laughing at something Roke said. Hina was practicing stances in the courtyard. Quiet, steady, the kind of growth that couldn't be borrowed. We were becoming visible. And no one had yet decided if that was a reason to reach out or a reason to sharpen knives. I closed my eyes and waited. Chapter 15. God with a Smile. Hermes didn't send one of his familiar. He sent a child. A boy, maybe 9. Thin arms, patched sleeves, eyes far too sharp for someone that young. No weapon, no crest, no visible magic signature. But the note he carried was on fresh parchment, folded once, sealed with wax stamped by a winged sandal. No courier in the guild would touch a seal like that without knowing exactly where it came from. The boy didn't say a word, just handed me the envelope and ran. He vanished into the alley faster than a level one should be able to. I didn't follow. Hermes was watching. That much was obvious. I waited until nightfall before I opened the message. Some say silence is wisdom. I say it's a conversation waiting to happen. Come meet me. East balcony, upper trade quarter midnight. Just us. I won't lie, but I might laugh. Age. The handwriting was precise, slanted, deliberately carefree. Calliope read it after me and poured another cup of tea. She didn't say no. She didn't say be careful. She just said, he's not afraid of you. He should be. No, because he's already prepared to lose. Midnight in Arario is never truly dark. The upper trade quarter is lit by merchant lamps, constant patrols, and spell lanterns that burn all night to protect the stock stored beneath high-value storefronts. But the east balcony overlooked a dead zone, a patch of sky-facing rooftops where the light didn't reach. Not magical interference, just absence. Hermes stood at the edge, back to me, arms resting lazily across the stone banister. His cloak was open. He wore no armor, no weapons. His hair was windblown, his posture relaxed. He didn't turn when I stepped onto the balcony. You're early, he said. You're late. He laughed. I hoped you'd say that. He turned, smiling, not the kind of smile used to charm mortals, not the one reserved for adventurers or kings. This one was quieter, a little older. You're taller than I expected. You're more informal than you should be. I'm Hermes. He said it like that was an answer. I didn't challenge it. He gestured to the stone seat across from him. I didn't sit. He didn't mind. I've watched you. You're late to that too. Maybe, but I pay attention when it counts. To what? You. Then say what you came to say. Hermes tilted his head. You want me to speak first? Yes. He looked down toward the lower district. The wind tugged at his cloak. You've made Freya blink. Yes. You made the guild lean backward. Yes. You made Loki curious. That's dangerous. Only if she doesn't enjoy it. He laughed again. Sharp, no hesitation. I don't waste breath. I admire that, Hermes said. Most people your age still try to act immortal. I didn't respond. Hermes nodded slowly. You're going to change the city. I already have. Then let me rephrase. He looked up. You're going to fracture it. I said nothing. That's not a judgment, he added. Just an observation. Then here's one in return, I said. You came to ask a question. Yes. And you'll get your answer, but first I get mine. He nodded, fair. Why now? Hermes shrugged. Because you're not a movement, you're not a child burning hot for attention, you're something else, something I don't understand. That bothers you. That interests me. I looked him in the eye. Say the rest. He did. I'm not here to stop you. I'm here to know which way the blade will fall when it moves. Why? Because I'm not a warrior, Hermes said. I'm a courier. And sometimes the best way to carry a message is to know which messenger won't make it to the end. I nodded once. Then ask. Hermes's smile faded just slightly. It wasn't a change in stance, just pressure. Are you here to destroy the gods? No. Are you here to replace them? No. Then what are you doing? I answered without pause. I'm rebuilding what you've allowed to rot. He watched me. Not because I care, not because I believe in something greater, but because it's broken and I'm still standing. Hermes exhaled once. You don't lie. I don't see the point. And you don't worship. No. Not even her. He meant Calliope. No. Then what do you give her? Respect. Hermes nodded slowly. She's smart. She's dangerous. Like you. No, she doesn't need to prove it. Hermes studied me carefully, not with divine sight, with strategy. You're not gathering an army. No. You're not asking for land. No. You're not seeking alliances. No. Then what are you building? I didn't answer immediately. Hermes waited. I said, equilibrium. He nodded again. I thought you might say that. Then you understand. I understand what happens to cities when they lose their balance. They don't collapse, I said. They turn into weapons. Or monsters. That too. Hermes folded his hands behind his back. You're not going to be stopped. No. You're not going to kill unless you're cornered. Yes. You're not afraid. I know what I am. And what is that? Necessary. That answer didn't come from pride. It came from memory. Hermes heard it. He tilted his head. I want one more thing. No. You haven't heard it. You want insurance. Hermes chuckled. You are dangerous. I'm consistent. He looked toward the stars. I don't want to get in your way. You won't. But I also can't let you walk alone forever. I already am. Then let me walk beside you for a little while. I studied him. No deception. Just invitation. You're not trying to leash me. No, Hermes said. I'm trying to learn the shape of the future before it bleeds. I said nothing. He stepped back toward the edge. I'll send no more messengers. Good. I'll ask no more questions. Better. But if you call, I'll come. I nodded. He smiled again, even if it kills me. Then he vanished. No flash, no noise, just absence. Hermes was gone. Calliope was waiting when I returned. She had 2 cups ready. You spoke to him? Yes. He asked. Yes. You answered. Yes. She watched me. And he's not a threat. No. But he's still watching. Yes. Lethe was asleep upstairs. I could feel her breath. Calm, even, focused. Calliope set down her cup. I'd follow you into war. I know. But I'd also stop you if you fell into one. You won't have to. She smiled. Then didn't.